So in this video, we're actually going to go through and show you how to create a packaging template to be used in ImagePrint Red software, along with the Canon Cut and Contour solution using any of the Canon branded image ProGraph printers, as well as the GraphTech cutters. So as you see here, we have several different types of boxes that you could do. These are just some examples. This is a hanger type box. Right here is a golf ball sleeve that we've done, and there's even a little window in the golf ball sleeve right here that you can see where you can actually reach in and touch the golf ball. We have several different golf ball sleeves we've done using different colors, different size or shape holes in them. You can really do all kinds of stuff, kind of the sky's the limit, and all of these are actually using the semi-gloss media, semi-gloss paper. Here's a candy box that we made. It's just a fake little candy box, but it has all of your nutritional information. It's got your barcode on it there that you can see. So you've got lots of information, lots of options that you can do. We've done wine caddies that hold little bottles of wine, so you can get pretty complex, and all of these are made out of a single piece of paper, one sheet, so no multiples. Then you can get into some of these really complex. This is a box of Godiva chocolates, and you can notice, again, all from one sheet. It even has a built-in flap that opens up and does this really ornate, complex top to it. You can see inside there's the folded over area where it's actually attached, and it's just, again, a single sheet of paper or stock on this. This is about the same thickness as our semi-gloss media. They've got them in different colors, different branding on it, so really, really neat what you can do with it. You can see we've done hair dye type boxes. This one's a little beat up, but it works. And then just simple little boxes like a bottle of aspirin. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to go through and we're going to do a template for this box of herbal tea that I had. And this box is a pretty basic box, nothing super special. But what we've done is we've deconstructed the box. We've taken it completely apart. You can see where it was attached right here. And we completely deconstructed it. And for each of these surfaces that we've got here, we need to go through and measure them out. So we've got all these different surfaces that are basically represented as individual boxes, including the two little flaps, the top flap and the side flap there. And what I've done is I've gone through and I've labeled each of the surfaces. So what we're going to do is go through for each of those surfaces, and we're actually going to measure each one. So we're going to add the different dimensions of each of those sides. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll break out the ruler here. And I like to use a metal ruler just because it gives me a little bit more accurate measurement. So we're going to start out with the top or the front surface. With the front surface, I'm just going to go through, and it looks like it's just over 5 1/4, but because this is a custom box, we'll keep it simple. We're going to make it 5 1/4. So we're going to go through and we'll write in, get my pen to work, 5.25 by, let's see how tall this is. All right, this is a 2.5. So we're going to go 2.5 tall. And because I know that the front and the back are the exact same size, I can actually just duplicate that. The front and the back are the same size. There we go. Now, the back, if you look, right, has this little circle in it here. So we're going to take that circle out later on. But then we've got the two sides. So we've got to do those two sides. Again, they're the same size as each other. So it's 3 inches wide. And it's going to be the same height as the back, or the sides are going to be the same height as the front and the back. So it's 3 inches by 2.5. And that one will also be 3 inches by 2.5. So again, I'm just going through and I'm documenting how big each one of these things are. Now I've got this little side flap, and this is where it attaches. You can see by the little piece of paper right here that's where it actually attached to the inside of the other one when you actually flap it over. Right there, so that other side will attach underneath. So I need to do a little quick measurement for that little side flap, and it looks like that's about 1/2 inch. So it's 1/2 inch by 2.5. Perfect. Now what you'll notice though is it's not a completely straight rectangle like the rest. It's got this little bit of an angle, and that's just so that when it's folded over it's a little easier to attach, and I don't have a squared edge that maybe gets in the way. So we'll actually show you how to take care of that as well. Now each of these sides that are here, we're going to be able to basically go through and duplicate that process all the way through and fill it out on the rest of the sheet here, and then we can go ahead and start creating those sides in the software, and we'll be using Photoshop to do that. You don't have to be a Photoshop whiz or expert to be able to do this. It's pretty basic. What we're going to be doing is very elementary. Now you may see that we want to add a window or something to it. So if you wanted to add a window to the box, we'll show you how to do that as well if you wanted to add a window or some kind of a neat thing. So let's head over to Photoshop and let's jump right in. All right, so we've finished doing our measuring. We've measured all the different dimensions, and now we're actually going to go through and we're going to start creating the template. Now, one of the things that I didn't show was I actually went through, and after I had gotten the individual measurements of each of the different sides, I went through and did an overall measurement of the entire box, unfolded and opened up. And what I needed to do was create a large size page, which is what we're looking at here, that was big enough to hold the entire thing once it's created. And that came out to 19 inches by 10 inches in terms of the size of the page, which is slightly larger than the fully open template. So the last stage in terms of measuring, getting all your measurements, is just to get one big overall size so that you can make sure you give yourself a canvas or a workspace large enough to hold everything else. Now, from there, we kind of move into what's going to seem very elementary, very basic, and there probably are ways that are easier to do this in other softwares, other programs, but this is just a way that I'm doing it just to make it super simple, to put it in a very elementary way that anybody can understand and do. We're going to try to keep it as simple as possible. Now, the two keys here are that when we create the surfaces, each surface, we're going to work with two different colors or two different shades of gray. So we'll need to go through and select those two shades of gray. We'll have a lighter gray and a darker gray. And anytime two surfaces touch each other, we want those surfaces to be a different color so that we can see where the fold points are when we start going through and creating what's going to help us with the folds. So right here, I've got a light gray already selected. I'll hit OK. Then I'm going to take this and change it to a darker gray. So let's go about there and hit OK with my color picker. So now I've got a dark gray and a light gray, so I'm good to go. So the next thing to do is go through and select the various sizes. And we're just going to make a box or a square for each size that we're going to be using, or each surface that we're going to be using. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to File, New, and I'm going to go through and make the front. So the front is 5.25 wide by 2.5 tall, and I'm going to hit Create. Now, if I pull that down, I can go through and let's make this a dark. So, sorry, we're going to hit Cancel. We've got the top color selected, so I'm going to hit my paint bucket and just fill that. And then I'm just going to take and drag that onto my surface. So there's my top. I've got my top ready to go. Now I know I need two of those because I know the back and the front are the exact same size. So I'm going to go through and I'm just going to hit Command J on a Mac or Control J on a PC, and that's going to duplicate that layer. Now I've got two layers. I got a front and a back. Now, before I do anything else, I want to put that little circle. Remember there was a circle on, or a little semicircle, half circle on the back that allowed you to kind of open the box a little bit easier. Now, if I reach over and I grab in the ruler and drag, that creates a guide, and that guide will snap right to the middle of that. Now, when you start adding more layers and stuff, it doesn't snap as well. So I want to do this now while I have less layers. So I'm going to snap, and I'm good. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my erase tool, which is right here. And I wanted to make sure that it has a nice hard edge. So if you look, I've got hardness here. I've got it at 100%. So I've got a nice hard edge. And it's 150 points. That's probably fine. I don't need a huge circle there. So I'm just going to go over here I'm going to make sure that my circle looks like it is right on the middle there. So I'm splitting my circle in half, and I only need half of it. So I just hit erase one time, and boom, just like that. Now I have my circle cut out. Now, there's other ways you can do it. That's just the easiest way. I'm not looking for perfection on this one, although that should be pretty close. I'm just looking for this to be a really good basic box template. So now I'm going to go up and I'm going to hit View, Clear Guides. I want to get rid of that guide. I don't need that anymore. So now I've got my front, I've got my back, and you can see that they snap to each other so that you can see by the purple lines that they're going to be aligned. Now I need to do my two sides. So I'm going to hit File, New, and my sides were 3 inches wide by 2.5, so I don't need to change that. And I hit OK. And I'm going to grab that new layer and undock it just by dragging it down. And this one I want to be the lighter gray, so I'm going to go here and I'm going to switch the little arrows here that are going to switch the light gray from the dark gray. Whatever color's on the top is the color that's going to fill. So I'm going to fill that. I'm going to grab my Move tool and drag that over. And now I've got one of my sides. And again, I need that twice. So I'm going to hit Command J on a Mac, Control J on a PC. And that duplicates that. So now I've got both sides, the front and the back, and I can kind of move everything together so that it's all one long piece. So now I've got a front, a middle, a front, a side, a back, and a side. Now I need that flap that's going to allow me to connect those. Now this one gets a little tricky because remember when we were looking at it, that flap has a little bit of an angle. It's not completely square. So we've got to go through and make sure that it's the right size, but at the same time cut a little bit of an angle off so that it's not perfectly square. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to do File, New, and that was 0.5 by 2.5, and I'm going to hit Create. I'm going to undock it. I'm going to fill that with light because it would be here, so the next alternating color would be light. So grab my paint bucket and just fill, grab my Move tool and drop it on. Okay, so if I just dropped it on, we'd be great, but it's straight across. And we want that little bit of an angle just so that it's a little easier to attach and you don't have, like if you're off a little bit, it doesn't have the edge sticking out a little bit. So I'm going to zoom in. Now, this might be the most complicated part, and it's not super tricky, but what we're going to do is I'm going to detach it. And I'm going to use my line, my lasso brush. Now, if you look at your lasso tool, there's a little arrow in the bottom corner. If I click that, you got your basic lasso tool, you got your polygonal lasso tool, and your magnetic lasso tool. I'm going to use the polygonal because that guarantees that I get a straight line every time I click, and it puts anchor points down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click just outside of my corner there, and then just drag across, click again, that puts down another anchor point, click again, and click again. Now all I'm going to do is hit delete. Alright, so and then I'm going to hit my marquee tool just to deselect. So now I've got that angle I want. Well, I want that exact same angle down here. I want it to look the same. And I don't want to just kind of eyeball it or guess at it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that marquee tool and I'm going to select that portion. And I'm going to hit Command J or Control J, depending on whether you're PC or Mac. And now what I've done is I've duplicated that, just that portion, the portion that I had selected. And I want to make that just temporarily slightly darker. So I'm going to hit Command L. And I'm going to grab my white slider and slide it to dark, and that makes anything I select darker. I'm going to hit OK. Now, and you'll see why in just a moment I'm making that slightly darker, because I just need to make sure that I can see what I'm looking at when I put this back on top. I'm going to go up to Edit, Transform, Flip Vertical. So now I've got it the way I need on the bottom, and I can just drag it in. Now, as I drag it down, when I get to the bottom, see how it snaps? So it snapped to where that corner is perfectly aligned. So I've got it to where measurement wise from here to here is exactly what I need. So now I need to go back and I need to select the light gray. So I've got auto select taken care clicked on here, which means anything I click is the layer it's going to select. So I'm going to click this, Now I'm going to grab my marquee tool. So I've got the longer gray, light gray piece selected. I'm going to grab my marquee tool and I'm going to hit delete. And what I've done now is I've deleted the area behind it. And I can now go through, I'm going to just click my marquee tool to deselect. And I've got layer 4 and layer 3. I'm going to combine those by selecting both. That's both pieces. And then I'm going to hit Command E on a Mac, Control E on a PC. Now that's one layer, okay? Now that I've got that flattened out, all I'm going to do is I'm going to select my paint bucket. I've already got the light color selected. And then I'm just going to go to the darker portion here and click. And just like that, I filled it. And now I can slide that into place. And now we've got all of those surfaces done. So what I want to do is go through and name all of those so that I know what each one is. So I'm going to name that one first, front flap. So all I'm going to do is go down to layer 4. I'm going to double click and type in front flap. Okay. Now all I have to do, remember I've got auto select selected, clicked. So I just click on the front layer and now it selects that. So I double click and just type in front. Then I can go here. This is side 1. So I selected that. Side 1. We're going to slide on over, select that. Back. And side 2. Okay. So now we've got the main surface of the box done. So now all we have to do is go through and kind of repeat that process, and we can add in the top of the box, the top flaps, and the bottom. So let's go ahead and do that very quickly. And this process should be pretty fast. We're going to go through and do File, New. We're going to do the top first. That is 5.25 by 3. Hit Create. Okay, so now I'm going to undock that piece. I'm going to fill it because it's touching the lid here. I want to make sure that when it touches that lid that it is the light color. So I'm going to switch the color, grab my paint bucket, fill, and now I can just drag that layer on. And now I've got my lid, and I need to do a top flap for that lid. So again, we're going to hit File, New. And that top flap was 5.25, which we have. So now it's 0.75. Create. And that's going to get filled with the dark. We're going to drop that in. And we're going to pop that in. Now, what we'll do, we'll actually go through and we'll do the rounded edge. And this is a little bit more complicated than doing the angled one that we did on the side here, but not really hard. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Command-Shift-N on a Mac or Control-Shift-N on a PC, and that's going to create a brand new layer. And on that brand new layer, I'm going to take a circle. I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to create a circle with a hard edge. So I need to go through and make sure it's got a hard edge. It does. And let's make it a little bit smaller until we get it on the screen. And I just use my bracket keys to make it large enough that I feel like it's going to give me the curved edge that I want. That seems like that's pretty good right about there. That's 300. So on this new layer, I'm going to go through and I'm going to use the lighter, and I'm going to make that circle. Now, I'm going to drag that circle over. And again, now there may be other ways that are a little easier to do than this. This is just the way I'm doing because it's quick and easy and it's basic that most people could understand. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to drag, I'm going to make sure that I'm covering all of, I don't want to see any of the dark gray through the light gray, and you'll understand why in just a moment. So I'm going to click on the layer for the circle, which is the one right above it. And then I click in the box, and now you see I've made a selection of just the circle. Well, I want to go through and I want to do select inverse. So what that's doing is it's selecting everything outside of the circle. So I know that the layer right below it, layer 2, is this. I can click on that. And if I grab my erase tool, Now anything that I erase outside of this will go away. So I don't want to go past this circle because I just want to get this corner here. But if you see, I've got a nice little buffer zone, so it would be hard for me to go past that. So all I have to do is hit my erase tool and just erase that area. Now I can grab my marquee tool and hit just click on the screen and it will deselect. And now if I get rid of my layer 3, I'm going to make it disappear for a second. Now you can see I got a nice rounded edge there. So I'm actually going to delete layer 3. I'm just going to drag it into the trash can. And I am going to go through with my marquee tool and do the same thing we did before. I'm going to grab that portion of it, and I'm going to hit Command J on a Mac, Control J on a PC, and I'm going to zoom back out so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to drag it over here. I'm going to fill it with a light gray for now. So we're going to fill, and then I'm going to hit Edit, Transform, Flip Horizontal. I'm going to grab my Move tool and drop it right in, and notice it'll snap right there for me. I'm going to select the layer below it. That's my dark layer. I can click on it because I've got auto select. And then I'm going to grab my marquee tool again, and I'm just going to select, making sure that I don't select anything past this because I only want to delete what's underneath here. And I'm just going to hit delete, and now that's gone. I'm going to deselect by clicking the screen. Now layer 3 is the top, layer 2 is the bottom. I'm going to select both of those. I'm going to hit Command E. And then I'm going to fill that end with the darker gray so it's all one color. So just like that, we've got our flap. Now, I need to name those, but I'm going to go ahead and drag this in place first. I'm going to put that flap right up here. There we go. And what I'm seeing is I'm a little crowded on the top. So if I go through and I select the top layer and I go all the way down to the bottom layer, not including the background, and select, now I've got my move tool. All I have to do is hit my down arrow and it will nudge the entire thing down. Let's nudge it down a little bit, slide it over so we're centered some. There we go. Now I need to name these. So this was the top. So I'm going to select the top layer and say top. And then I'm going to select the top flap and name that top flap. And I'm only doing this so that later on, if I need to move anything or change anything, I can just visually quickly reference the name of something very easily, and I'm not looking for going through layer 1, layer 2, layer 3 trying to decide what's what. I can just look at the actual name, and it's named just the same exact way that I wrote everything down. Now we've got the two flaps here. Now when we looked at what I was measuring, the two flaps were had some neat contours and shapes to them. I'm actually just going to do basically the same thing that we have here. So it's got that little bit of angle on both sides. This is our design, so we can make it what we want. I don't need the complex contours that the other box had. I just need two flaps so that when it's closed, it doesn't bubble up on the ends, so that I can see into the box. I want whatever's in it to be protected from the sides as well. So I know that the top sides are 3 by 2.5. So I'm going to go through and do File, New, and it's 3 wide by 2.5. Create. And I'm going to undock. And because this is going to be beside a lighter one, I've already got the dark on the top there. So I'm just going to fill that, and then I can just drag this on. There we go. Now, it's touching right here, and that's what I want to avoid, because when we go through and we create a path on this, to create a path that's just going to wrap around the outside, well, I need a cut right here. So I want to go through and actually just put that little bit of an angle on it so that the path leaves that little bit of a cut. So we're going to go through, and I'm going to go with my Polygonal Lasso tool again. I'm going to click on the corner, and I'm going to just drag right up and hit enter, hit delete, grab my marquee, hit Command J. So the same thing we did before, we're just selecting the different pieces. I'm going to edit, transform, flip horizontal. I'm going to fill that with a lighter color just so I can see it. Grab my move tool, slide that in place. It's going to snap. Perfect. There we go. Then I'm going to select that bottom layer. I'm going to hit delete. There we go. And now I can grab layer 1 and layer 2. Command E or Control E if you have a PC. And then I can fill this side with that darker gray. There we go. And again, I need 2 of those. I'm going to drag that in place. Then I'm going to hit, again, Command J or Control J, depending on whether you're PC or Mac. Now I've got those 2 top flaps. Now, for the bottom, I can make this anything I want. So on the bottom, we actually had the flaps as being, when we measured them out, they were 2 inches. But it was kind of arbitrary. They can be anything we want. So knowing that it's arbitrary, I can make all of the bottom flaps 2.5 inches instead of 2 inches. So out of ease, all I'm going to do is I'm going to take this one, duplicate it again, so Command J or Control J, depending on PC or Mac. Then I'm going to edit, transform, flip vertical, and pop that right in there. And then the same thing again, duplicate, and pop that in right there. So now I've got all of those flaps. Now I just need to do the 2 bottom flaps that are going to cross over. So those can be perfect rectangles. And remember, we changed our size. So this is 2.5 now. So we're going to go File, New, 5.25 by 2.5. I'm going to hit Create. I'm going to undock. I'm going to use my lighter gray. And then I'm just going to fill that. And then I can just drag this onto my screen. Put that one there, duplicate, and drag that one there. Now, if you wanted to duplicate without actually using the keyboard shortcuts, you just go to whatever layer that it is you want to duplicate, and you go to Layer, Duplicate Layer, hit OK, and now I've got a duplicate layer. I just like the keyboard shortcuts so it moves a little quicker. So I'm going to go back into history. So there we have the completed layout of all of the blocks. We've got all of our surfaces done. There were 13 surfaces on the box. We got 13 surfaces here. So we're completely set. So now we need to go through and we need to create the little folding slits. This is going to be basically what gives us the quick, easy ability to fold the box without having to use any kind of a bone knife or anything like that. It's just going to be a few minor little slits everywhere that a fold would be to guide you as you're folding it. So to do that, I'm going to zoom into this white area right up here just to give myself a workspace. And I'm going to grab my, I'm going to go Command Shift in or Control Shift in if you're on a PC. I'm going to create a whole new layer. And on this new layer, I'm going to grab my marquee tool and I'm going to make a very thin, as small and thin as possible as I can, this little tiny line. And then I got to zoom way in because we've got to fill that. And now I'm going to actually, if I click on this box right here, you've got your 2 grays. If I click right above that, it switches it to black and white. I want black. So I'm going to fill that with black. So I'm going to put my arrow so that it's right inside of that, and I've filled that with black. I'm going to hit my marquee tool again so I can deselect. So now I've got one tiny little slit, and I need to duplicate that. And let me name these real quick while we're thinking about it. So let's zoom back out for a moment. Let's name these so we don't get confused. I'll grab my move tool. I'm going to click this one. And that's top flap 1. I'm going to select this one. Top flap, or I'm sorry, top side 2. And let's change this one to top side 1. And then let's go down here, and this is bottom 1. This is bottom 2. This is bottom side 1. And this is bottom side 2. All right. Now, if you can keep up with the layers with the different numbers and everything, that's fine. And you don't have to rename them again. I just name them in case I need to see what's going on at the bottom. You'll see in a minute when I'm going through with the slits. So I'm going to slide up to my very top. And that layer 4 is the only thing that's not named. So I know, move that to the top, I know that's my slit. So I can name that slit. So I need to duplicate my slit. I need to have more than one of those. So I'm going to hit Command J, Control J. And while I'm on the Move tool, if I just hold down the arrows, it just slides over. So I need to space that out so that there's enough room that they're not right on top of each other so that they don't tear easily. And just, you can kind of eyeball it. I want it so that when I put it here, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 here in this small range. So that's probably fine. Actually, I'll move back just a little bit. And you could do 3 or 4. It's really up to you. Actually, let's just do 3. So when you're doing these, the less of these you put in a fold, the less you notice them. So we're just going to go with 3 on the small, 4 on the large. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to select those 2 slit layers. I'm going to hit Command E or Control E to make them one layer. So now you can see they're both a single layer. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate that layer, which is going to give me 2 more slits. So Command J or Control J. And again, I'm going to use my arrow keys to let them slide over. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop for a second. I'm going to put this slit right on top of this slit so that they're perfect. And what that will do is it will guarantee that I have 3, I'm left with 3 slits, but that are perfectly spaced. So I'm going to slide that over, and when we get closer, I'll zoom in, and that will make sure that we have 3 slits that are the same size and equally spaced. So let's zoom in, and we'll zoom a little bit more, and we're going to slide. So I saw it kick out on that side, so I'm going to slide back. So right there is perfectly in the middle. So now I'm going to, again, click on the 2 slit copies, Command E to flatten it down. So all I did, Command E just combines those 2, or I can go to Layer, Merge Down, same thing. And it just, whichever 2 layers or whichever 3 layers or however many layers you have selected, it will combine them into one. So I'm going to now turn off Auto Select. And the reason I'm doing that is because these are so small that if I have that selected and I click and miss it, I'll actually move the wrong thing. So I'm going to turn off Auto Select. Now, as long as I have the slit copy selected, I'm good. So I'm going to now grab and drag this down, and I want to put this right in the middle of where that fold would be, just like that. And it's pretty close. We're not looking for perfection, but it's pretty close. That's going to give me a little cut there, a cut there, and a cut there for 3 little fold points. So that'll make it really easy to fold. So I'm now going to duplicate that, and I'm going to move that layer. So I just duplicated the slit, and I'm going to move that layer over here. I'm going to zoom in and make sure I'm putting it where I want. Notice on that one I put it just above. So I'm going to do the same thing here. I want it just above. Right now it's just below. Right there, 1 click, just moved it right above. All right, so now that I've got that there, I need to put some fold points over here, here, but we're going to start with right here first, because once I've got that, I can duplicate that entire row and move it down here, and then I just need to add those in. So I'm going to duplicate the row that we had here. I'm going to hit Command J or Control J if you're PC, and drag that there. And then I'm going to duplicate that and drag that over there. And then again, I just need to make sure that they are sitting on top and not below. So that one's not. I'm going to select that, move it up to the top. And same thing, I need to move that one up to the top. All right, so now I've got my fold points all the way across here. I'm going to duplicate the folds 4 and 5, still the slits for copy 4 and 5. That's the ones that are over here. Or I'm going to combine those two after I've selected them. And then I'm going to hit Command J to duplicate them. And now I can move those up there. And I'm going to zoom in. And I want to put those just above the line. There we go. Now I'm going to hit Command J again and move those same ones down here. And if we zoom in, this time I'm going to put them, and they're already right below the line because I'm trying to keep my main surface here where nothing's folding on it. It's folding above or below it. So there we go. We've got those done. And now I need to put that same one here. So I'm going to hit Command or Control J. Move that one over here. Just kind of eyeball it. That looks pretty good. Let's zoom in, make sure we're below. We need to move it up just a smidgen. There we go. And you can see by having the dark color and light color, I can see where that seam is. So it makes it really easy for the placement of my slits here. Now I need to go through. Let's find this slit. So if I zoom way in, I'm going to hit my auto select. If I click on the slit, let's see if I can click on the slit right there, and we'll turn it off and on just to be sure. Yep, we got it. So I'm going to hit Command J. I'm going to turn my auto select off again. And now I can just move that down here. I need to duplicate it again to move over here. So I'm going to hit duplicate and drag that one over here. And I'm going to zoom in and make sure that I put both of those below that seam. I did, but I need to move it up just a little bit. Boom, right there. And let's go to this one. Let's see. Grab my auto select just to make sure I have it selected. And I'm going to click on it. There we go. And slide that down. All right, so that's exactly where I need. Now, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 more folds, and I've already got slits created. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the one that's currently selected, which was this one. I'm going to duplicate it. Then I'm going to go to Edit, Transform, Rotate 90 degrees clockwise. And just like that, you can see I've created a slit that is now running vertically. I'm going to click Auto Select so that I don't move the wrong thing. And now I can just move that right here. Now in this case, it really doesn't matter if you're top or bottom or left or right of the line. You just right there is going to be fine. So I'm going to go to the left of that one, and then I'm going to hit Command J. I'm going to slide it over to this one. We'll zoom in and make sure we're on. We're good. Command J. Slide this over. Zoom in and make sure we're good and on it. And that one we're a little off, so just use my right arrow and move it over. There we go. I'll actually move that one to the other side. Command J or Control J if you're a PC. And let's move this one all the way over. And again, I'm going to put it on the outside of my front of my box. So on that side. And now I've got all of my slits made. So everywhere that there's a fold, there's a folding slit. And you'll see where that's important in a minute. So now I can go through and I can select every one of those slit copies. So I click on the top one, scroll down, find the bottom one, hold down Shift and click. And I can hit Command E. And now I've got one layer. If we go to the top, oh, we got to select the rest of them. Now I've got one layer that's all of my slits. And then I can do the same thing. I'm going to go through and combine all of the flat surfaces. I don't need to create anything else, so I'm going to create all my flat surfaces. Make sure I don't have my slits selected because I don't want to combine those. So I've got my front flap all the way down to the front selected, but not on the background. I'm going to hit Control or Command E. So now if I turn this off, all you see are the slits there. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit. All you can see are the slits. And if I turn this on, you see the template. So now I want to make the background one solid color. So I'm going to turn the background off, and I've got just my template. I'm going to hit Command or Control L, depending on whether you're PC or Mac. And then I'm just going to grab the output slider and drag the black one down to white. That makes it solid white. And I can name this template. And I can name this Fold Slits. Okay, so now we have our base template and we have our slits. So now we need to create a cut path on those. Now this is the fun, easy part. And this is basically what the machine is going to see when it's, or what the software is going to see, when ImagePrint Red is going to see when it's looking for a cut path. So now we want to create a path around this. And what we need to do is select the area that we want to create a path around. So what we're going to do is we're going to go down here. We're going to hit Command and click inside the box beside the word template. And what you see is now we've got, and I'll turn the background layer on so you can see better. Now what you can see, we actually have the marching ants going around the shape of the actual full template. So if I have my marquee tool selected and I right click in here, the sixth thing down is Make Work Path. I'm going to click on Make Work Path. And it's going to give me a tolerance of 2.0, which is fine. The default is good. So I'm going to hit OK. And now you can see I actually have a cut path around this. Great, this is perfect. That's what we were hoping for. We wanted a cut path, but we need to name this cut path. So I'm going to go to my paths. Now I've got a work path. I'm going to double click. And let's slide this over so you can see. Now this is important. The name for your path will be all caps IPCUT -1 colon -1 colon -1 colon -1. Now, the only number that you're ever going to change that's important is that first -1. And the only time you would change that is if you had a specific layer order or more layers. So our first layer, our first cut, is that first path that you see there. So I'm going to hit OK. Perfect. So I've got my first cut done and named properly. Now I'm going to go to Layers. Now I'm actually going to hold down Command or Control, whether I'm PC or Mac, and I'm going to click in the box beside Fold Slits. Now it's got the marching ants around just those little lines, those little dashes I did. So I need to zoom way in because that's a tiny area. And I need to make sure I'm inside that. You can see how it changed from a crosshair to a little box with an arrow. And I'm going to right click, go down to Make Work Path, hit tolerance of 2.0 is fine. Again, default is fine. And if I zoom back out, look at that. Now you can see I actually have a cut path on each one of those. So again, I need to name it. So I'm going to go IPCUT, all caps, -2, because this is the second cut path, colon, -1, colon, -1, colon, -1, and hit OK. So now I can go back to my layers, and if I turn everything off, except for the background, and it's just solid white, if I click on each of the cut paths, I can actually see that I have cut paths there. So I don't need anything in terms of information there other than to be able to see what my cut path is. But it's kind of nice to leave those there so that you have a guide. Now I'll delete the slits because I don't need to keep that. And I don't like having them there because I may accidentally forget to turn them off and print them in my image. So I'm going to delete the slits. And a lot of times what I'll actually do is I'll make the template layer like a light gray or something. So let's do that. Let's take and select with my picker tool a very light gray. And I'm going to select that background layer again. And I'm going to just use Paint Bucket And now I've got that light gray so that when I'm looking at it, it's nice and flat, but I can, or it's there, I can see. So when I'm looking at it, I can visibly see what the boundaries are. Now, ultimately, when I'm designing whatever my design is, I would put whatever color I wanted on there. But my paths are now named and they're there. So now the key is when we go through to do cutting, whatever we do has to be perfectly flat. You can't have layers because the software doesn't interpret those layers properly. So you would go through and you would do your whole design. So you could put whatever patterns you wanted in here. So if you wanted to put like a text layer on there, and let's pick a really cool red, and let's put like ImagePrint red. So if we put print red, and we made that really big, so let's go to like 72, real big and red, and we put that here. I can kind of tell, okay, well that's too big, so I'm going to size this down. Now what just happened? Well, because what you'll notice, because when I was doing my work here, when I went to move that word that I had put on or any design elements, I hadn't unselected down here. So what's going to happen, and this is one of those things you need to understand, anytime you start designing, you need to make sure that your paths aren't selected. So the nice thing is, all I have to do is go back in history. So I'm going to go back in history. Now my ImagePrint red is there, but if you look, I've created a weird cut path with that. So I'm actually going to go even further back in history and get completely rid of that. Good. So now you see I actually have this light gray here, which means it's selected, and I can actually see the cut path. So what I need to do is click out of that, and look, now there's no path, and both of these are dark. So now I can go back to my layers, I can click, and I can type in ImagePrint red. Now I can go through and say, okay, that's too big. Let's make that 60 instead. That's much smaller. And now I can actually move that. And look, I didn't get that weird boundary because my paths aren't selected. It's still a little too big. I'm going to go through and make that let's go 48. Now I can put that there and it's going to fit. And if I wanted to make sure it's going to fit, I can go to paths, briefly turn on my boundary, and there you go, that's the slits. So that kind of shows you where all the folds are, and I know the word image print is going to be within the folds. Then I'm going to click out again to make sure I don't see that. But now you would actually go through and you would put all of your different design elements. If you wanted to put a pattern or a swoosh or something on it, you could put all your different design elements on, and when you print it, even if it prints outside of the lines, it will cut perfectly within the software. Now once you've done all of this and you've made your design, you would go through and save and flatten everything. But if this is a template I'm going to use a lot, I'm going to delete the word red. This is a template I'm going to use a lot. I'm going to flatten the whole thing because, again, I cannot have any layers. And I would go File, Save As, and then once you're here, just navigate to wherever it is that you're trying to go. And then you're just going to name it new template or whatever it is you want. And then I always put in all caps the word path or paths. And that lets me know that this template already has paths associated with it. But even though it's flat and there's no layers, I need to keep the file type as a Photoshop document. So it'll be a .psd. The reason being is, even though it's basically a JPEG, it's completely flat. That .psd indicates to the ImagePrint Red software that there's a cut path associated with it. So it's going to look at that image or whatever that you've created in terms of that template, and it's going to look for a cut path and know, okay, there's cut paths here, so I need to cut exactly where the creator of this told us. So I'll hit save, and I've got it. It's done. Okay, now I can actually go through and bring in all my graphic elements, design everything, lay everything on top. So if I were doing this, I would leave it just like you see it, and then I would actually turn that lock off. So now that background layer is not locked. I would do all of my design on top of this gray. Then I would delete this layer on the bottom so that that gray's gone, because I don't want that gray as part of my background. I only want what's left. Then I would flatten the entire thing. So I would just go up to Layer, Flatten Image, and again, rename it to whatever, like Finished Template or whatever, Finished Template. But I would again put that word paths on the end. So Finished Template dash paths, or Finished Box dash path, whatever you want to call it, and then save it as a .psd. Then when you bring it into ImagePrint Red, it will automatically see it with that design element to it. And let's go through and let's add a window. So let's say I just want a window about that big in the entire thing. Well, all I have to do is go through. I've got my marching ants, so I'm good, right? All I have to do is click inside of that box that I've made as my window. And if I want, I can actually, while I'm selected here, I can hit Command J, and that will give me a whole new piece. So as you can see, it's a whole new piece. If I want to fill that with white so that it's easier to see, I can just click there and drag that over. So I can move this wherever I want. Then I'm going to select in that layer. I've got my marching ants. I'm going to go to my marquee tool. I'm going to right click, go down to Make Work Path. There's my tolerance. And then I'm going to go to Paths, and look, I got a new layer. And I'm going to go IPCUT, all caps, -3, colon, -1, colon, -1, colon, -1. Okay, now I can actually go back. I can delete this piece that I just made. Or if I want to, I can leave it, and that way I know that there's a hole there. So it's really up to you if you want to delete that or not. But I always have that path for reference. But if I turn this path off, now I've got this box with a hole in it. So it's that easy to add a window, and it could be whatever shape you want. So if I wanted a circular shape, I mean, you saw that line when we do the path, it follows whatever shape you put. So if you went and got a hexagon or whatever shape you wanted and put it there to make that a window, you could put it there and make a real simple basic window for something. That's how I did the golf ball boxes that I showed at the very beginning. I wanted hexagonal shaped windows so that the balls would show through. I just found a hexagon, dropped it in, followed that shape, and now I had a hexagonal window to be able to see the golf ball through. So it's whatever shapes you put in, whatever you want to do, but it goes through and creates that window. And it's that easy to add a path. And if I decide, you know what, I don't want a window there, I just take that cut path and drag it out. And now that cut path is gone and that window is gone. I can go ahead and delete that, and now I'm done. All right, so now we come into ImagePrint, and I'm going to take one of the mini designs that I've already done. I'm going to take that golf ball box we showed you at the very beginning, so you can see a finished one with the design and everything on it. This one has a window and slits and everything. So if I want to open up my navigation window or my browser, I would go to View, Add Browser if you don't have that already. It'll bring this area up here. You can click on the folder, and it will automatically give you the ability to navigate to wherever it is that you need or wherever you have your template saved. If I go down to my cutter settings and make sure that this is checked on, I'll see this grid around it, and that grid indicates that it is in cutting mode, because this grid is where it's going to put the reference areas for the cutter to go through and read to make sure that the registration marks are there and it's got the proper cutting path. So now all I have to do is drag my finished template over, and if I zoom in, you can see all the purple lines indicate that there's a cut. So there's my outside cut. The slit marks are there. Those are my different fold points. Those are cuts. And then I've got this window here where you can reach in and touch the golf ball. That's a cut. So all of my cuts are there, and you can see my design. I've got a little bit more elaborate design with the different swooshes and the sweeps here, and then I've got all my text and my words and everything. I've got a little Canon image prograph type logo up here on top, but I've got all of the information I need right here on the box, and it's ready to go. I've even got, like you can see, the little folds that we put in there so that the box actually has a nice cut between the flaps. So it's all perfectly done, and it automatically sees it. So we're set. Now I can actually send it to the printer, print, and once it prints, so we'll send that to the printer, hit OK. And if I hit my spool face, when I launch the spool face, once that job is done printing, it will move down to the bottom here. When it's in the bottom, what ends up happening is that it will be red. So there's two different colors it could be. If it was down here, if it's red, that means it has a cut path associated with it. If it's white, that means that it doesn't have a cut path associated with it. Now, once that job is printed, and it's not going to print right now because I'm not connected to a printer, so you can see I couldn't get machine identification. It's because I'm not connected to a printer for this lesson. But once that prints, all I would do is go down and it's going to print the job number, and you can see the job numbers are right here. It's going to print the job number beside a barcode. I would just find the job number. If it was job number 35, once it's loaded into the cutter, as we've shown in some of our other videos, you would just select the job, click on the pair of scissors, and it would then send that cut path over to the cutter. It will read the registration marks and then go through and cut each of the different paths that we've done. So just like that, when you're all completely done, you'll end up with a perfectly cut out, perfectly finished, custom looking template for a piece of packaging that you've created just for your business. So I hope you've enjoyed this video in terms of walking you through the ways to create a template. I know it's kind of a long video, but it definitely walks you through everything you need to know and hopefully makes it a very simple process. It really only takes me 20-30 minutes to make a basic box like this. Maybe just a little bit longer if I've got some complex windows and things in it, but it's a very short process. It takes me actually longer to teach you how to do it than it does to do it. It's a very simple process in terms of going through and doing everything. All you have to do is follow the steps in this video and you'll be making brand new packaging in no time. I hope you enjoyed the video and check back with us for more content all the time.